All right, welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground so far, from the basics of consciousness to some pretty complex modern theories. But today, we're going all the way down. We're heading to Layer 4, where the ideas get really ambitious, seriously mind-bending, and, well, let's just say speculative. So, let's get into it. This is really the core question for today. We're going to look at theories that suggest consciousness is a kind of feedback loop, or maybe a bizarre quantum effect happening inside your neurons. Or, and this is a big one, maybe it's something that literally extends beyond your skull. So get ready, because we are diving into the deep end.
And here we are, the deep end. This is where the most ambitious, and yeah, sometimes the most controversial theories live. We're shifting gears now, moving past just what consciousness is, and exploring some really wild ideas about how and even where it all happens. Our first stop? The idea that the mind is a kind of self-reflecting loop.
So what if that feeling of your sense of self, what if it isn't some solid thing that's always been there? What if it's something that's actually created, moment by moment? That's the core idea here, that consciousness pops into existence when a system starts looking back and thinking about itself. This brings us to Douglas Hofstadter's incredible concept of the strange loop. The best way to think about it is with that analogy of a camera pointing at its own screen. You get that infinite, trippy feedback tunnel, right? Hofstadter suggests our brain does something similar. It builds a model of the world to understand everything, but eventually, that model gets so good it creates a symbol for the very thing doing the modeling, itself. And in that act of self-reference, that strange loop, the feeling we call I just emerges.
And this is where it gets really philosophically juicy. Hofstadter's loop suggests a real self is created. It's emergent, sure, but it's there. But then you have this ancient Buddhist concept of anatta, or no self, which basically says our feeling of a solid, permanent I is totally an illusion. So are these ideas in direct conflict? Or are they just two different languages describing the same fascinating emptiness at our core? That's a debate for the ages.
Now, Hofstadter's loop is pretty much contained inside the brain's squishy hardware. But what happens if you take that exact same logic, that idea of a self-referential system, and you blow it up to the scale of the entire universe? Well, that's exactly where our next theory goes.
This is the foundation of the cognitive theoretic model of the universe, or CTMU, by Christopher Langan. And you gotta admit, it's an incredibly bold idea. Langan is essentially proposing that reality, with a capital R, is a kind of language that is simultaneously writing itself, reading itself, and understanding itself. In this model, consciousness isn't just some random thing that happens in the universe. It's a fundamental property of the universe's grand project of coming to know itself.
Okay, let's reel it back in from the edge of the cosmos and get physical again. This next batch of theories isn't about abstract loops or universal languages. No, these are all about finding a specific, tangible, physical process that you could point to and say, there, that is consciousness. And believe me, the candidates they propose are pretty surprising.
All right, stick with me here. Nobel laureate Roger Penrose, along with Stuart Hameroff, came up with the OR theory. They argue we have to go quantum. Deep inside our neurons, there are these tiny protein tubes called microtubules. The theory says these little guys can exist in a state of quantum superposition, multiple realities at once. Then, the brain's electrical activity orchestrates all these quantum states until, bam, they hit a critical tipping point and collapse into one single definite state. And that physical collapse, Penrose and Hameroff argue, is a moment of pure conscious experience.
Now, Penrose's theory is brilliant, but it relies on these super delicate quantum effects that a lot of scientists are, frankly, pretty skeptical about. So what's the alternative? What if we don't need to go quantum at all? What if consciousness is powered by a force that's much more familiar?
And that brings us to Johnjoe McFadden's CEMI theory. CEMI stands for a conscious electromagnetic information field. McFadden makes a really bold claim. He says that the electromagnetic field produced by all our neurons firing isn't just some exhaust fume. He argues it is consciousness. This EM field, he suggests, is what knits together all the separate bits of information, the sights, the sounds, the smells, into one unified experience, solving the famous binding problem. And it could even be the mechanism that allows our will to influence our own neurons, giving us actual free will.
Okay, so we've had loops, we've had quantum collapses, we've had electromagnetic fields. But every single one of those theories locates consciousness squarely inside our heads. This final group of theories, they challenge that most basic assumption we have. What if your mind isn't actually where you think it is?
The philosopher David Chalmers, who you might remember for coining the hard problem, also co-developed the Extended Mind Hypothesis. So the normal view, internalism, is simple. Your mind is in your head. Duh. But Chalmers and his colleague Andy Clark asked a really clever question. If you use a notebook to remember appointments, isn't that notebook functionally a part of your memory? They argue that yes, our cognitive processes, like remembering or calculating, can literally extend out into the tools we use, becoming part of our mind's machinery. Your smartphone isn't just a tool, it's part of your mind.
But, and this is a really important but, the theory makes a crucial distinction. It argues your cognitive processes can extend, like memory or calculation. It does not say your conscious experience extends. Chalmers is super careful about this. So while your memory of a phone number might literally be on your phone, the subjective feeling of being you, the what it's like part, that's almost certainly still inside your head.
So, what is this relationship between our inner world of experience and the outer material world? The psychiatrist and writer Ian McGilchrist offers a really profound idea called dual-aspect monism. He suggests that reality isn't just one thing. It has two fundamental, inseparable aspects, like the two sides of a coin. You've got the material world we can measure and touch, and you've got the world of experience that we actually live in. And crucially, you can't reduce one to the other. They're both equally real. So for McGilchrist, consciousness isn't a thing you can pinpoint on a map. It's not in the brain, and it's not just out there in the world. It actually arises from the relationship between them. It's a process. You can think of it like a conversation happening between your brain and the world. Consciousness is the conversation itself, not one of the speakers.
Whew! Okay, we have journeyed through some seriously strange territory. We've seen strange loops, quantum weirdness, and minds that literally leak out into our phones. These are some of the most creative, challenging, and out there ideas that science and philosophy have to offer. So let's just step back and pull it all together for one final overview.
When you look at all these theories side by side, the sheer diversity is just staggering. I mean, look at the range here. You've got strange loops contained in the brain's network, and then you have Langan, CTMU, which puts consciousness in the fabric of the entire universe. You have Penrose zooming into the quantum realm inside a single protein, and McFadden zooming out to the brain's entire electromagnetic field. Then you have Chalmers pushing cognition out into our tools, and McGilchrist saying it's not a place at all but a relationship. Each theory gives a radically different answer to the question of where and what you are.
And that's what it all comes down to, really. That final, unanswered question. After all this, what feels right to you? Are you a ghost driving a machine? Is the machine itself, through its own incredible complexity, the thing that's creating the feeling of a driver? Or are we all part of something far, far grander? Just a brief note in a cosmic song, a single thought in the mind of the universe? The only thing we know for sure is that asking the question is one of the most profound things we can do. Thanks for joining me.